The Tycoon's Unseen Child. A shocking reunion and a hidden truth. Fire. Don't miss a single twist, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and tell us what you think in the comments. Every bit of support helps us bring you more amazing stories. Part 1. A glimpse of the past. What are you doing here? Elias's voice sliced through the bustling train station like a sharp knife. Olivia slowly turned, the baby in her arms adjusting to the movement, his tiny head covered by a gray bare-eared hat. Elias's eyes were fixed on the child. There was something about him, something that chilled Elias to the bone, but he couldn't grasp what it was. "None of your business, Elias," she replied coldly, clutching the baby tighter to her chest. "Is that your son?" he asked, ignoring Olivia's biting tone. He took a step closer, noticing how she recoiled slightly. "Yes, he's my son." "So what?" Olivia snapped, raising her chin defiantly. Elias frowned. He had spent years avoiding any thought of Olivia, burying her memory in the deepest corners of his mind. But now she was here, in front of him, with a child he couldn't get out of his head. Something inside him began to churn. "Who's the father?" he demanded directly, his words laced with tension. Olivia glared at him, her eyes burning with a mix of rage and exhaustion. "It doesn't matter who he is. We're not in that part of our lives anymore. Don't look for me, Elias. I've forgotten you. Don't bother me again." Her words hit him like a punch. She brushed past him without a backward glance, leaving a void in the air. Elias stood motionless, his thoughts caught in the echo of her voice and the baby's gaze, a face he couldn't shake. But something didn't add up. There was a weight in her words, something she wasn't saying. Elias clenched his fists, his thoughts swirling like a tornado. He wasn't going to let this go. Part 2. The Haunted Mind of a Tycoon. Elias sat in his office, staring at his computer screen. A spreadsheet was open in front of him, but he had no idea what it showed. His mind was elsewhere, trapped in the moment he'd experienced at the station. The image of Olivia and that child haunted him, a puzzle he couldn't solve. "Who the hell is the father?" he muttered to himself, tapping his index finger gently on the desk. He knew it shouldn't matter. 5 years had passed since he broke up with Olivia, a time he had strived to fill with work, travel, occasional flings, and nothing resembling commitment. It had been for the best, for both of them. Or had it? He stood abruptly and walked to the window. From there, he could see the city he had conquered. His businesses were thriving, his name respected in circles he once only dreamed of entering. But now, for the first time in years, it all felt hollow. There was something about that child, that look, those eyes. "It can't be," he said aloud, almost as if trying to convince himself. Across town, Olivia finished folding freshly washed clothes in the small apartment she shared with little Alex. Her hands moved quickly, but her mind was trapped by what had happened that afternoon. "Why did he have to show up now?" she murmured, looking at Alex, who was playing with a worn teddy bear on the floor. She had done everything possible to keep him out of their lives. Elias was part of a past she had locked away, a past that had left her with wounds that took years to heal. She didn't want her world, her son's world, to cross paths with Elias's. What if he suspects something? She wondered aloud, though no one could answer her. The idea that Elias might connect the dots terrified her. She had worked too hard to protect Alex from that life, from that man. Chloe, her best friend, arrived shortly after, carrying a bag of pastries and a kind smile. "You look worse than when you tried to fit that wedding dress into the sewing machine," Chloe joked, placing the bag on the table. Olivia sighed and slumped into a chair. "I saw Elias," she finally said. Chloe raised an eyebrow, surprised. She sat across from her, her eyes now serious. "Did he see you with Alex?" she asked. "Yes, and he asked if he was my son. But he doesn't know anything, or at least I think so." Chloe shook her head. "You know this was going to happen sooner or later. You can't hide the truth forever." "And what do you want me to do, Chloe?" Olivia retorted, raising her voice slightly. "Tell him he has a son after 5 years? It's not that easy. He's not part of our life and he won't be." Chloe sighed, knowing Olivia was unwilling to listen to reason. But she also knew that time and truth had a cruel way of catching up to you when you least expected it. Part 3. The Truth Unveiled. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. After tossing and turning, he finally made a decision. He got up, grabbed his phone, and dialed a number. I want you to find out everything you can about Olivia Green. Where does she live? Where does she work? Who does she associate with? Everything. And I want it by tomorrow. He hung up before receiving a response. His eyes were dark, but his mind was clear. If there was one thing he knew how to do, it was find answers. And he wasn't going to rest until he understood what Olivia was hiding. The next morning, Elias received a discreet envelope in his office. He opened it with steady hands, but his heart pounded. Inside were a series of documents, addresses, recent photographs, information about Olivia's work, and something else. The report stated that Olivia lived in a small apartment in a modest part of the city. She worked as a seamstress in a workshop and, most importantly, that the child, Alex, did not have a father registered on his birth certificate. Elias stared at that last line, a hollow feeling in his chest. Why no father? Why was he never registered? His mind swirled with assumptions, but there was only one way to know the truth. Olivia was in her workshop, sitting at a sewing machine, trying to finish a complicated dress for a demanding client. The whirring of the machine and the laughter of the other seamstresses filled the place, but she couldn't concentrate. Her thoughts were on Elias and how his presence threatened to dismantle the life she had built for herself and Alex. Suddenly, the front door swung open forcefully, and an uncomfortable silence spread through the room. Olivia looked up, and her heart stopped. There stood Elias, impeccably dressed in his elegant suit, as if he belonged to another world. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes glowed with intensity. "We need to talk, Olivia," he said, his voice deep and firm. The other seamstresses exchanged uncomfortable glances, but no one said anything. Olivia slowly rose, her hands trembling slightly. She wiped her hands on her apron, trying to remain calm. "I have nothing to say to you, Elias. Please, leave." "I won't leave until you tell me the truth," he responded, crossing his arms. "This isn't the place or the time." Olivia raised her voice, trying to maintain composure. She looked around, feeling the others' gazes on her. "Then let's go. I'm not asking you for a favor, Olivia. I'm demanding an answer." Elias's words fell like a heavy weight. Olivia knew she had no way out. She nodded and took off her apron. "I'll be back in a bit," she murmured to the others, trying to appear calm. Elias walked out first, and she followed him. They walked side by side down the street, but the silence between them was overwhelming. Finally, Elias stopped in front of a cafe and pointed to a table in the corner. Olivia didn't argue. They sat down, and Elias was the first to speak. "Alex is my son, isn't he?" Olivia felt as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. She wanted to deny it, but Elias's gaze pierced through her. It was as if he already knew the answer. "There's no point in arguing." "Yes, he's your son," she finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. For a moment, Elias said nothing. He looked out at the street, his thoughts churning. Olivia braced herself for an explosion of rage, but when Elias looked back at her, his expression wasn't anger. It was something deeper, incredulity, pain. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Because I didn't want you to be part of his life. I knew you didn't have time for a family. All you cared about was your career, your success, and I didn't want him to grow up feeling like a burden to you." "That wasn't your decision." Elias slammed the table, though he quickly regained his composure, noticing the stares of the people around them. "I had a right to know, Olivia." "For what?" she retorted, raising her voice. "So you could treat him like just another project in your life? Elias, you don't know what it's like to raise a child alone. You don't know what it's like to sacrifice everything for someone else. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't trust you, because I knew you weren't ready." Olivia's words left him speechless for a moment. Elias took a deep breath, trying to process what he had heard. His hands tensed on the table. Maybe I wasn't ready then, but I am now. No matter what you think of me, Olivia, I'm going to be part of my son's life. I'm not going to turn my back on him." Olivia looked at him with skepticism, but also with a hint of weariness. She knew Elias was serious, and that scared her more than anything else. "All right," she finally said. "If you really want to be part of his life, prove it. But I won't let you hurt him, Elias. If you do this, you have to be completely sure." "I am," Elias replied without hesitation. And with those words, they both knew something had changed forever. Elias had a son, and neither of them could ignore what that meant. Part 4, Building a Bridge. Alex played with a ball in the park, while Olivia watched him from a bench. Her eyes were fixed on him, but her mind was elsewhere. Elias had kept his promise to enter their lives. For the past week, he had insisted on spending time with Alex. Although she had set clear boundaries, she couldn't deny that his presence was beginning to affect them both. "What's your teddy bear's name?" Elias asked, crouching down next to Alex, who was holding his stuffed bear. "Buddy," Alex replied with a smile. The naturalness with which Elias behaved with his son surprised Olivia. She had expected clumsiness, discomfort, or even rejection. But not this. Elias was making a genuine effort, and although Olivia didn't want to admit it, her defenses were beginning to lower. "He's a good name for a strong bear like that," Elias commented, eliciting a giggle from Alex. Olivia looked away, crossing her arms tightly. She couldn't let this affect her. She had spent too many years building up barriers for everything to fall apart because of a few smiles and kind words. "Looks like he likes you," Olivia said softly when Elias approached to sit beside her on the bench. "He's a good kid. I don't know how you've done it alone, but it's obvious you've done a great job," he replied with a sincerity that disarmed her. "It wasn't easy," she admitted, looking at Alex, who was still playing with his ball. "But I had no other choice. When someone depends on you like that, you find strength wherever you can." Elias fell silent, watching Olivia. There was a hardness in her face that he didn't remember, a sign of everything she had had to face without him. For the first time, he realized the weight of what she had carried alone. "I want to help you, Olivia, not just by being a father to Alex, but to you too. You don't have to keep doing this alone." Olivia looked at him cautiously, her eyes full of doubt. "And how do you plan to do that? With money, with gifts?" "That's not what we need, Elias." "I'm not talking about money," he responded, keeping his gaze fixed on hers. "I want to be someone you can rely on. I want to be there for both of you, seriously. Let me prove it." Olivia didn't answer immediately. Her instinct told her not to trust him, but there was something in his tone, in the way he spoke, that seemed different from the Elias she remembered. "All right," she finally said with a sigh, "but I'm not going to make it easy for you. If you really want to be part of our lives, you have to earn it." "I understand that," Elias responded firmly, "and I'm willing to do it." In the following weeks, Elias began to show up more frequently. Sometimes he would join them at the park, other times he would visit them at home to play with Alex or simply talk with Olivia. Little by little, he began to form a routine, a space in their lives that didn't exist before. One day, while they were playing together on the apartment floor, Alex looked up and said something that left both of them speechless. "Daddy, can you pass me the car?" Elias froze for a moment, surprised by the word. He looked at Olivia, who had the same astonished expression. Alex, oblivious to the tension, continued playing as if nothing had happened. "Did you hear what he said?" Elias murmured, breaking the silence. "Yes," Olivia responded, feeling a lump in her throat. "But don't make a big deal out of it. He's just a child." "It means something, Olivia. It means he's accepting me," Elias insisted. Olivia didn't know what to say. Part of her was glad to see the connection between Elias and Alex, but another part feared what might happen if all this went wrong. She couldn't allow her son to suffer. "Just don't disappoint him, Elias," she finally said, her voice cracking slightly. "Alex doesn't deserve that." "I won't," he promised. That night, after Alex had fallen asleep, Elias and Olivia sat in the small living room of the apartment. Elias watched her as she poured 2 cups of tea. It was the first time in years he had seen her relaxed, even if only a little. "I've been thinking," Elias said as he held his cup. "If you want, I could help you open your own sewing business. Not as a favor, but as something you can manage on your own." Olivia looked up, surprised. "Why would you do that?" she asked, suspicious. "Because I want you to be independent, Olivia. I know how important that is to you. I just want you to have a fair chance." Olivia looked at him for a long moment, trying to decipher his intentions. Finally, she nodded slowly. "All right, I'll think about it." It was a small step, but they both knew it meant something much bigger. They were starting to build a bridge between them, one that might just be able to bear the weight of their past and the future they shared. Part 5. The in-laws' cold embrace and a looming storm. Alex ran excitedly through the huge garden of Elias's family home. It was the first time Olivia had brought him to meet Elias's family, a step she had reluctantly agreed to take. The place was imposing, a mansion with huge windows, surrounded by perfectly trimmed trees and a fountain in the center of the courtyard. Everything seemed too luxurious, almost alien to the reality she knew. "Don't worry," Elias said softly as they walked towards the main entrance. "My family can be a bit intense, but Alex, he'll be fine. And so will you." Olivia nodded, though her expression showed distrust. She knew Elias was trying to reassure her, but nothing could calm her nervousness. From the moment they crossed the threshold, she felt eyes on her, cold and analytical. The first to greet them was Victoria, Elias's mother, tall, elegant, and with an expression that barely disguised her displeasure. Victoria approached with measured steps. "Is this Olivia?" she asked, casting a quick glance at her son before settling her eyes on her. "Yes, Mom. And this is Alex, your grandson?" Elias replied, placing a hand on Alex's shoulder, who was distracted by the floor mosaic. Victoria's face showed no emotion. She bent slightly towards Alex, examining him as if he were a strange object, before smiling superficially. "He's a cute child," she finally said, straightening up. Olivia felt her blood boil, but she forced herself to remain calm. Elias, noticing the discomfort in the air, took the initiative. "Let's go to the garden. Alex wants to see the ducks in the pond." Without waiting for a reply, he led them outside. Olivia followed, taking a deep breath to control the rage caused by Victoria's cold treatment. When they reached the pond, Alex ran excitedly, forgetting the tense atmosphere. "I'm sorry," Elias suddenly said, looking her in the eyes. "I knew this would be complicated, but I didn't expect my mother to be so distant." "You don't have to apologize for her, Elias. But now you understand why I didn't want to bring Alex here. I don't want him to grow up feeling like he doesn't fit in, like he's less. I promise you I won't let that happen. Alex is as much a part of this family as anyone, and I'm going to make sure they know it." Olivia didn't respond, but something in Elias's tone made her believe him, if only a little. Inside the house, while Elias and Olivia walked with Alex through the garden, Victoria met with Daniel, Elias's business partner and best friend, in the main living room. "This isn't good for Elias or the company," Daniel said with a worried tone. "Have you seen how investors look at him when they mention his out-of-wedlock son?" "It's a scandal," Victoria replied, frowning. "Elias has always been a brilliant man, but sometimes he doesn't think of the consequences. That woman and her son could ruin everything he's worked for." Daniel nodded, taking a sip of his whiskey. "We need to talk to him. This can't go on." That night, after Olivia and Alex retired to rest, Victoria confronted Elias in the study. "Elias, darling, we know you're excited about all this, but have you really thought about what you're doing?" Victoria began with a fake smile. "What are you saying, Mom?" Elias replied, crossing his arms. "That woman and the child are not from our world. You can't just bring them here and expect everything to fit perfectly. Think about your reputation at the company." Daniel is worried too. Elias was silent for a moment, surprised by his mother's lack of tact. "Alex is my son," he finally responded, with a firmer tone than he expected. I don't care what you or Daniel think. I will do whatever it takes to make him feel loved and accepted. And if that means I have to distance myself from you or the company, I will. Victoria's eyes widened in surprise, but Elias didn't wait for her reply. He walked out of the study, making it clear that he would not tolerate any interference. When Elias returned to the room where Alex slept, hugging his bear buddy, he found Olivia awake, sitting in a chair near the window. "Everything all right?" she asked softly. "Yeah, just clarified some things with my mother," Elias responded, sitting beside her. Olivia watched him for a moment, noticing the tiredness on his face. "You know you don't have to fight them for us, right?" she said in a softer tone. "I'm not fighting for you, Olivia. I'm fighting for what's right. Alex is my son, and he deserves to be treated as such. I won't allow anyone, not even my family, to make him feel less." For the first time, Olivia felt that Elias was truly willing to change. Still, she knew that things wouldn't be easy, and the tensions with his family could become a constant threat. As she watched Alex sleep, she understood that this was only the beginning of a much bigger battle. Part 6. Betrayal and a Desperate Farewell. The days that followed the visit to Elias's parents' house were marked by hidden tensions. Although Elias continued trying to balance his new relationship with Alex and Olivia, the shadows of his professional life were beginning to spread. In his office, sitting in front of a financial report, something didn't add up. The figures were inconsistent, and Elias knew something was wrong. "Is Daniel in the boardroom?" Elias asked his assistant. "Yes, sir. He's waiting for you for the investor meeting." Elias nodded, but his expression was more serious than usual. For weeks he had felt that something wasn't right with the company's funds. Now, the numbers confirmed his suspicions, and he knew he had to confront his partner. Meanwhile, in her apartment, Olivia was sitting next to Alex, helping him build a tower with wooden blocks. However, her mind wasn't entirely there. There was something disturbing about the way Victoria had treated her during their visit. She knew that woman was capable of many things, and the fact that Elias was confronting her only increased her anxiety. "What's wrong, Mommy?" Alex asked, looking at her curiously. "Nothing, love. I was just thinking," Olivia responded with a smile, stroking his hair. The doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. When Olivia opened it, she found Chloe, who was carrying a bag of food and her characteristic carefree air. "I brought you empanadas, but you look 1,000 miles away," Chloe said, entering the apartment. Olivia closed the door and sighed. "I was thinking about Elias. I don't know what's going to happen. His family doesn't want us around, and I feel like this is just going to get worse." "Has he told you anything?" Chloe asked as she took the empanadas out of the bag. "Not directly, but I know he's confronting his mother for us, and I don't want him to do that. I don't want to be the cause of more problems in his life." Chloe gave her a sympathetic look. "You have to trust him, Olivia. If he really wants to be in Alex's life, he has to learn to handle these things, and you can't carry everything alone." In the boardroom, Elias sat across from Daniel. The investor meeting had ended, but Elias had paid attention to almost nothing that was said. Now that they were alone, there were no more excuses. "Daniel, I want you to explain these discrepancies in the company accounts," Elias said, dropping a folder on the table. Daniel looked up, surprised, but quickly composed his expression. "What are you talking about?" he asked, feigning calm. "Don't play with me. I've reviewed the numbers, and there are unjustified transfers. Missing money, and it all points to you." Daniel's face hardened. For a moment it seemed like he was going to deny it, but then he leaned forward, his tone turning colder. "And what if I did? I've been by your side from the beginning, Elias. I've worked myself to death for this company while you were busy with your personal dramas. I just took what I deserve." Elias's blood boiled, but he forced himself to remain calm. "This isn't what you deserve, Daniel. This is betrayal, and I'm going to make sure you face the consequences." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "Do you really think you can handle all this alone? If you take me down, I'll take others with me. You're not as untouchable as you think, Elias." The threat was clear, but Elias didn't back down. He had learned to deal with snakes like Daniel, and this time he wasn't going to let anyone get in the way of what he was building, not just for his company, but for his son and Olivia. I've made my decision, Daniel. I want you out of my company, and I assure you, you won't have a chance to harm it further. That night, Elias arrived at Olivia's apartment, his face tired but determined. Olivia greeted him with a worried look, noticing the weight on his shoulders. "What happened?" she asked as he sat on the couch. "I confirmed something I suspected. My partner, Daniel, has been stealing from the company. Today I confronted him, and I'm getting him out of everything, but it won't be easy. He's going to try to make my life difficult." Olivia looked at him in silence for a moment before sitting beside him. "Are you sure of what you're doing?" she asked. "More than ever. Not just for the company, but because I want to make sure that everything I'm doing for Alex and for you isn't in jeopardy. I won't let anything stop us." Olivia felt a lump in her throat. For the first time, she began to believe that Elias was truly committed, not only to his son, but to her as well. But she also knew that this battle would not be easy, and that the shadows of their past and present continued to haunt them. The dawn light filtered through the window of the small apartment, but Olivia hadn't slept. She had spent the whole night sitting at the kitchen table, with a blank sheet of paper in front of her and a pen in her hand. Her thoughts were a mess. Elias had shown more than she expected, but the problems he faced seemed endless, and now she felt that she and Alex were just another burden in his life. Alex was still sleeping in his small bed, hugging Buddy, his teddy bear. Olivia watched him from the kitchen, her heart full of love and fear. She couldn't bear the idea of her son getting caught in a war that wasn't his, a war between Elias and the world around him. Finally, with the voice of her conscience as her only companion, Olivia began to write. When Elias arrived that afternoon, he found the apartment empty. The silence hit him harder than he expected. On the kitchen table was an envelope with his name carefully written on it. He felt a chill as he opened it, and as he read Olivia's words, his chest filled with despair. "Elias, there's no easy way to say this, but I think it's for the best for everyone. I can't stay here. Alex can't stay here. I don't want him to be part of the conflicts arising around you, nor do I want him to feel like he doesn't fit into your world. You're facing too many things, and we're just another burden. I know you've done everything possible to show you can be a good father, and I don't doubt your intentions, but I need to protect Alex. I need to give him a peaceful life, away from all this. Don't try to find us. This is my decision, and it's what's best for him. Olivia." Elias let the letter fall onto the table and covered his face with his hands. His mind filled with questions. Where was she? Why didn't she trust him enough to stay? But one question stood out above all others. How was he going to find her? Part 7. A father's desperate search and a mother's awakening. Olivia and Alex were on a bus leaving the city. She had booked a ticket to a small town where no one knew them, a place to start from scratch. As Alex looked out the window, excited by the scenery, Olivia felt a mix of relief and sadness. She had done this for him, but that didn't make the sacrifice hurt any less. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Alex asked with his usual curiosity. "To a pretty place where we can be peaceful," Olivia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Alex smiled, satisfied with the answer, but Olivia knew that, eventually, she would have to give him more explanations. For now, she could only focus on what was in front of her. Building a new life. Elias wasted no time. He knew Olivia hadn't gone far. He hired an investigator to track Olivia's recent movements, but while he waited for results, he found himself consumed by uncertainty and fear. He had begun to build something with her and Alex, something he didn't know how much he valued until he lost it. In the middle of the search, he received a call that paralyzed him. "Mr. Elias, we have urgent news. Your son, Alex, is in the hospital." When Elias arrived at the small rural hospital where Alex had been admitted, he found Olivia in the waiting room, her face pale and her hands trembling. She looked up at him, and for a moment, her emotions were a whirlwind. Relief, fear, rage. "What are you doing here?" she asked, standing abruptly. "Olivia, it doesn't matter how, but I came. What happened to Alex?" Elias replied, ignoring her tone. He has a high fever. The doctor said it's an infection, but they're waiting for the test results. Olivia explained, trying to stay calm. Her eyes were red from crying. I'm staying here. No matter what you say, I'm not leaving, Elias declared firmly, and Olivia didn't have the strength to argue. For hours they waited together while Alex rested on a small cot. Finally, the doctor gave them the news they were waiting for. Alex's infection was treatable, and with the right medication, he would recover soon. When they returned to Alex's room, Elias approached the bed and took his son's little hand. I'm going to be here always, Alex. No matter what happens, I'm never going to leave, he said, whispering the words as if they were a promise. Olivia watched in silence. For the first time, something inside her began to break. She had done everything possible to keep Elias out of their lives, fearing what might happen, but now she realized that perhaps she had made a mistake. Elias, she said softly, breaking the silence. Maybe I was wrong to leave, but I don't know if I can handle all of this. Elias stood up and looked directly into her eyes. You don't have to handle it alone, Olivia. Let me help you. I'm not perfect, but I want to be here, not out of obligation, but because I love you, you and Alex. Olivia didn't respond, but her eyes filled with tears. She knew there was still much to resolve, but for the first time, she allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to move forward together. Part 8: Rebuilding Trust. The next morning in the hospital, Alex already looked much better. His eyes sparkled again, and though he was weak, he smiled every time Elias made a funny comment or played with Buddy, his teddy bear. Olivia, exhausted but relieved, sat by the window, observing the interaction between Elias and her son. There was something in the way Elias cared for him, in the patience and tenderness he showed, that stirred feelings she had tried to bury. Daddy, can you tell me another story? Alex asked, using that word for the second time, which still sounded strange yet natural at the same time. Elias smiled, leaned towards him, feigning conspiracy. Another story, all right? But this time it will be a story about a brave boy who went looking for magical ducks in a pond, he said, eliciting a soft giggle from Alex. Olivia couldn't help but smile from her corner. Elias wasn't doing this out of obligation. He was there because he genuinely wanted to be, and that disarmed her. When Alex finally fell asleep, Elias approached Olivia, who was looking out the window. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was comfortable, but it was filled with unspoken things. I don't want you to disappear again, Olivia, Elias finally said, breaking the silence. His voice was firm but full of vulnerability. I understand why you did it, but I can't lose you both again. Neither you nor Alex. Olivia sighed, crossing her arms as she looked outside. It wasn't easy, Elias. You don't know what it was like to make that decision, to leave with him. But everything I do for him because I want to protect him. And so do I, Elias retorted, his tone a little louder. I'm not just here because I'm his father. I'm here because I want both of you in my life. Olivia, I know I've made mistakes, but I'm willing to change, to do whatever it takes to show you I'm here to stay. Olivia looked at him, noticing the intensity in his gaze. There was sincerity in his words, and although doubts still lingered in her heart, there was also hope. I don't know how to trust you, Elias. Not after everything that happened between us, she said honestly. Elias nodded, accepting her words. I don't expect you to trust me immediately, but I'm going to show you step by step that you can. I'm not going to give up. The days that followed brought subtle but significant changes. Alex recovered quickly, and Elias was by his side every moment, making sure he had everything he needed. Even when Olivia tried to maintain her emotional distance, it was impossible to ignore the positive impact Elias was having on her son's life. One afternoon, after returning to the apartment, Elias called Olivia while Alex played in the room. I want to talk to you about something important, he said, in a more serious tone than usual. What's wrong? Olivia asked with a hint of concern. I've been thinking a lot about what you said about protecting Alex and giving him stability, And I think the best way to do that is to ensure you also have the independence you need. Olivia frowned, trying to follow his train of thought. What do you mean? I want to help you open your own sewing workshop, Elias said with conviction. A place where you can work without worrying about anything else. I know independence is important to you, and I want to support you in that. Olivia blinked in surprise. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Why would you do that? She finally asked. Because you deserve it. Because I want you to have the tools to build the life you always wanted. I'm not trying to buy your trust, Olivia. I'm trying to show you that you can count on me. Olivia looked at him for a long time, searching for signs of selfishness or manipulation in his words, but she found nothing. Elias seemed genuinely committed, and that disarmed her. All right, I'll try, she finally said with a small smile. But if this doesn't work, I want you to know I'll keep going alone, as I always have. Elias nodded. That's all I want. For you to keep going, but this time not alone. That weekend, Elias took Olivia and Alex to a park where the three spent the afternoon together. It was a simple place, far from the luxuries and tensions of Elias's world. There, for the first time in a long time, Olivia felt something akin to peace. As Alex ran after the ducks in the pond, Olivia and Elias sat on a bench, watching him. The sun began to set, and the warm tones of the afternoon enveloped the moment. I never thought we'd end up here, together after everything, Olivia said, breaking the silence. Me neither, Elias admitted. But I think this is where we were always meant to be. Olivia didn't respond, but something in her heart began to soften. There was still much to heal, but in that moment, with Alex laughing in the distance and Elias by her side, for the first time in years, she thought that perhaps the future didn't have to be as solitary as she had always imagined. Part 9. A mother-in-law's redemption and a family forged in love. Olivia worked at her sewing machine, finishing the last details of a dress for a client. The small workshop Elias had helped her open was still under construction, but it was already functional. It was a modest space with light-colored walls and enough light to work comfortably. Olivia looked at it and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Alex played in a corner, building block towers that he would then knock down with laughter. Elias sat nearby, reviewing some papers from his company. He had started working from Olivia's workshop to spend more time with them, a decision that had surprised everyone, including himself. What do you think? Elias asked, looking at Olivia as she observed the space with a small smile. I can't believe this is real, she responded, putting the dress aside. I thought I'd always be stuck in that old workshop, not moving forward, not growing. But now, I don't know, everything feels different. That's because it is, Elias said sincerely. You built this, Olivia, I just gave you a little push. The rest is all yours. Olivia looked at him and, for the first time, let her smile be completely honest. Thank you, she said softly. The relationship between Elias and Olivia had improved, but both knew they were walking on fragile ground. Olivia wasn't ready to fully trust Elias yet, and he knew it, but both were committed to trying for Alex's sake. One day, while Elias played with Alex in the park, Victoria appeared without warning. Impeccably dressed as always, she walked towards them with measured steps. Olivia, who was sitting on a nearby bench, noticed her immediately and stood up, tensing instantly. Victoria, what are you doing here? Elias asked, standing up with Alex in his arms. I wanted to see my grandson, Victoria replied in a neutral tone that didn't quite match her usual coldness. Alex, oblivious to the attention, looked at Victoria with curiosity. Who are you? He asked innocently. I'm your grandma, darling, Victoria replied, genuinely smiling for the first time. Olivia slowly approached, observing the interaction cautiously. Although she didn't trust Victoria, something in her expression made her pause. For the first time, she seemed to be setting aside her pride to reach out. I didn't come to fight, Victoria said, looking at Olivia. I know I haven't been fair to you, but I want to make amends. I want to be part of Alex's life. Olivia crossed her arms, not hiding her distrust. Why now? She asked frankly. Because I realized I was losing something important, Victoria admitted, her tone softer than usual. Alex is part of this family, and I want to know him, even if it's late. Elias intervened before the situation escalated. Mom, if this is an attempt to manipulate us, I won't allow it. But if you're truly willing to change, it will be Olivia's decision. Victoria nodded slowly, accepting the condition. I don't expect you to believe me immediately, Olivia, but I want to try. For him. Olivia watched her for a long moment before nodding cautiously. All right, but if I see this as a strategy to distance Alex from me, you won't see him again. Victoria accepted the conditions without protest, making it clear that this time she was serious. The months passed, and although the relationship with Victoria remained tense, small signs of change began to appear. Alex quickly accepted her, without the adults' reservations, and that helped to soften their interactions. Elias and Olivia continued to work on their relationship, building a dynamic that, though not perfect, was based on respect and commitment. One day, as Olivia watched Elias and Alex play in the workshop, she realized something. Maybe they would never have a conventional family, but what they were building together was unique. She wasn't sure what the future held for them, but for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a path full of possibilities. That night, as Alex slept, Elias and Olivia sat together in the small workshop living area. Elias broke the silence. I've been thinking a lot lately, he said, looking at his hands. About what? Olivia asked, looking at him curiously. About us, about what we are, what we could be. I don't want to rush you or pressure you, but I want you to know that I'm willing to take another step if you are. Olivia looked at him for a long time, considering his words. She had spent so long protecting herself that the idea of letting her guard down still scared her. But at the same time, she knew Elias had changed. He had shown that he was willing to stay, to fight for them. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, Elias, she said sincerely. But I'm willing to continue building this with you, step by step. Elias nodded, accepting her answer with a smile. That's enough for me. Both remained silent, watching the small lamp that illuminated the room. In that moment, the future remained uncertain, but they had found a truce, an opportunity to move forward together, no matter what came. Part 10. The Horizon of Forever. The sun gently illuminated the park, where Alex ran after a ball, laughing heartily, while Elias followed close behind, pretending he couldn't catch him. Olivia watched them from a nearby bench, with a mixture of serenity and hope she hadn't felt in a long time. 2 years had passed since that day at the hospital, and although life hadn't been easy, they had found a way to move forward together. Elias had continued to be a constant presence in Alex's life, dedicating time and love in a way Olivia never thought possible. Although they still maintained some emotional distance, their relationship was now a solid alliance, built on mutual respect. Olivia's workshop had grown slowly, becoming a place where neighborhood women could learn sewing and earn a living. Elias had kept his promise to support her, but always respected her independence, letting her take full control of the business. For his part, Elias had begun to redirect his life, balancing work with family time and moving away from the negative influences of his past, including his former company. In the park, Alex tripped over the ball and fell to the ground. Olivia immediately got up, but Elias was already there, helping him up. I'm fine, Mommy, Alex shouted, raising his arms in victory as Elias laughed. Olivia sat back down, watching her son run again, tireless. She realized how much her life had changed since Elias reappeared. She had learned to trust, to accept help, and above all, to open her heart again. Although the fear of being hurt was still there, something stronger was replacing it. The certainty that she was not alone. Victoria had also found her place in the family. Although she would never be the ideal grandmother, she had learned to respect Olivia and slowly win Alex's affection. Her relationship with Elias also improved, although the wounds of the past took time to heal. When Alex ran up with his ball in hand, Olivia picked him up, laughing along with him. Elias joined them, placing a hand on Olivia's shoulder, and for a moment, everything seemed to fit perfectly. Can we go for ice cream? Alex asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Of course, champ, Elias replied, pulling out his wallet with an exaggerated flourish, making his son laugh. As they walked together towards the small ice cream shop in the park, Olivia took Alex's hand, and without realizing it, her hand brushed Elias's. He looked at her and smiled, and in that small gesture, Olivia felt something she couldn't ignore, the possibility of a future together. Maybe they would never be the perfect family, but what they had was real, built with effort, love, and sacrifices. And in that moment, under the park sun, with Alex laughing and Elias by her side, Olivia knew that although the path had been difficult, it had all been worth it. They didn't need to be perfect. Being themselves was enough. How do you feel about this story? Does it hit all the right notes for you? Let me know your thoughts.